Welcome to the GeoAL podcast.
The new era of intelligence.
Welcome to the GeoAL podcast. I am Nick Smith, and joining me today again is our Chief Growth Officer, Jim Moore. Jim, welcome back. It was great talking about you the last episode, talking about your background, your time coming up in Silk, Colorado, going from this kind of small community to this crazy adventure in the Army, and then kind of transition into your time moving out of the service. So that's what I wanted to talk about today was your experience exiting the military and entering life as a defense contractor. Tell me about that experience. Like, what was that like? Not transition to the military. I think we touched on that, but just kind of settling into a civilian role. I mean, I think there's a lot of people transitioning from the military that want to know what that's like to just kind of settle into a job.
Yeah, so I think I would first comment on the word settle, right? Settling in on a job. And I think that's what a lot of people probably do is they settle in on a job. When I got out, like we were talking in the last episode, I got out and I was doing GIS integration. And that was fine, right? I certainly think there's more people that are much better at that job than I am, or that I could ever be. But that position, it wasn't just like keeping up with technology. It was like finding the latest and greatest, right? Which you're very good at, which Steve Stout, our director of Geospatial Solutions, is very good at. But I'm not, right? And so that was my first position, and it was good. I got to learn a lot. I got to go to a lot of different classes. Really look at that. That blend between cutting edge technology and bleeding edge technology that SOCOM wants and needs, right? But for me, that would have been sort of settling for a job rather than actually doing something that I really like and love and enjoy and that I look forward to going out and doing every day. And so that was sort of where I had to make the decision. Do I want to continue doing this job that's good, right? And it definitely paid the bills and paid, made some money and made a difference. And or do I want to sort of step out of my comfort zone and actually go do something that I enjoy doing and that I look forward to doing? And ultimately, that's where I wanted to start getting into the management side and doing that strategic design. Right? How do you put the teams together?
Yeah. I want to talk about that because I think there's a lot of contractors, a lot of our team members at GeoAL, there's a lot of other companies we work with, their team members that are people working on contract. They're doing awesome, really amazing technical stuff. Yeah. They're doing high impact work for our customers. But a lot of times it's shift work. A lot of times it's tough, it's grueling. There's deployments and things like that. It's very stressful and I don't know if everyone can do that forever, right? So there are people are constantly asking me about, hey, how do I move up into management? How do I move into these other areas? How did you approach that? Because you were working on a contract, right? You were in GIS integrations. How did you move from being a contract employee to growing into more of that management track?
Yeah, so I had a conversation, right, with my boss, and I asked him what I need to do to get there. Right, and I think that first step is always a challenge, right? Figuring out where do you really want to go? So I had the conversation with my boss at the time. His name was Russ, and I just said, "Hey, what do I need to do to get into your position?" I saw what he was doing as a manager, as a leader, and I thought that's something that I wanted, right? That's the part of the military that I really missed was taking care of people, right? So I thought if I could get in. At that time, I was on a contract. I was like contract employee like 67, and ended up growing to be like this, what we call the SOCOM 300, right? Once we hit that 300 mark, that was like a big deal for us. But just helping people like me as they get out of the military and they're starting to get into the contract world, right? When they go and they deploy, we had this contract that we had. It was on a GSA schedule. It ended up growing and being a very large sort of like full cycle intelligence contract. It had everything from interrogators to SIGINT to HUMINT, all source, GeoInt, FMV, like you name it. At the beginning, there wasn't. I was actually the first geospatial type position on the contract, but it was everything under the sun. And they deploy and they would need that support, right? So I felt like that was something that I could fit in well, and I thought it would be something that I could do, at least somewhat well, right? It's just a matter of caring, right? It's a matter of like wanting to do something more. So I had the conversation with him, and he told me, he's like, well, this is a good start, right? I know you don't have your degree yet, so, one, you need to get your degree. If you're going to be in management, you have to have your degree. Whether it helps you do your job or not, you have to have it. And he goes, you got to get your PMP. So I said, okay. So I was already going to school. Thanks to you, you helped me get through all my math classes. This is what something a lot of people don't know, is that you're very good at math, and I'm not. So I remember sitting in the barracks, like many times I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'd have like 3 pages of, I don't know, math or algebra or finite math or something like, oh, I can't figure this stupid problem out. I'm like, Nick, how do you do this? And they come over and you're like, well, the answer is this. I'm like, well, no crap. The answer's in the back of the book. How did you do that? And I remember it would take you longer to figure out how to do the problem or show me how to do the problem than, it actually took you to solve it. I forgot where I was going with that.
That's that Florida education right there.
Yeah.
The high-speed Florida education.
Or it's just your brain. It could just be your brain too.
So, I think it's a tough task for people to move out of their comfort zone, right? I think that a lot of people get comfortable, right? They're earning a paycheck.
Exactly.
They want more, but they, maybe they don't have time to do the homework, or they say they don't have time, which really, it's not about time, it's about prioritization. We all have 24 hours in the day. It's all about how you prioritize your time. What you put at the top of your list of getting done is going to get done. But I think for a lot of people, they're trying to move, they want to move into that management position, or they want to move into that higher tier position. And they'll even go as far as to talk to their manager, right? A lot of it stops there. I can't tell you how many people, and I know you've had the same experience, where team members say, hey, Nick, I'd like to get into management. And I've always said, great, awesome. What can I do to help? Because that's my approach, that's my philosophy. I will do anything I can to help people get ahead. But the truth is, people have to do the heavy lifting. So what did you do? Like what steps were you taking? You said you were doing your degree, PMP, that sort of thing.
Well, you're right, Nick. I mean, so that's exactly what the challenge is for most people, and I will get back to what I did. But if you remember, like, I've always been a whiteboard person, right? I love whiteboards. Even in our barracks, I had that whiteboard as a little tiny, I don't know, like 18-inch by 24-inch whiteboard. And you guys used to, maybe not you, I don't know, some of our other friends. You're always so professional. Everything you did, so professional. Never vulgar comment on my whiteboard, but everybody else wrote vulgar comments on it.
Right. I can't imagine what people might have drawn on a whiteboard as the first thing.
Beautiful pictures of sunsets. that was it.
Sure.
Beaches, mountains. No, but I had on the whiteboard, I wrote, there's 3 things a person needs to be successful. I said, number 1 is a plan, right? We all talk about, hey, I want to be, I want to be this or I want to be that, right? And that's fine, but let's write it down, right? Or I'm sorry, I said a plan, a goal, right? A goal. Number 1 was a goal. We all talk about the goals that we have, right? I want to be a mega millionaire, right? I do. Like, who doesn't want to have a lot of money? I want to be a mega millionaire. I don't want to have 1 million, 2 million. I want to have many, many millions over, because I don't want to have to worry about money and my kids' college education and their future and how I can help other people, But in order to have that, you have to do stuff, right? You have to make commitments. You have to make investments, right? So number 1 is a goal. Number 2 is a plan. Right? It's one thing to say that you want to have a lot of money. It's another thing to say, all right, now this is what I'm going to do to get there. So as number 1 was a goal, number 2 was a plan, and then number 3 was time. How long is it going to take to achieve that goal, right? I think it's interesting, colleges, they have, bachelor's degree is 4 years, 4 or 5 years, right? But then they also have the associate's degree, right? That's at the 2-year mark. They also have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, right? And I think that's very important in the entire education system. I can't imagine that there wasn't an intentional reason to why they made those intermittent goals, right? Because if you put something off that's way far off in the distance, that's good to have, but you got to give yourself wins, right? So as I was going through college, I found out that I'm not really that smart, right? Other people thought about this first, and it's called SMART, the acronym SMART, right? Specifically, what are your goals? Measurement, right? How do you measure it, right? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? What's the timestamp, right? So, actually take the time to write down, like, no crap, this is what I want to do, right? This is my plan on how to get there. This is how long it's gonna take to get there, right? What are my incremental wins? And so, that's what I started doing is, like, my boss said, hey, in order to do this, you need your bachelor's degree, you need your PMP. In order to go beyond that, you might need these extra. And he also said, he goes, bring to us opportunities. And I think that was, in addition to the hard things that I had to do, right, where, like you were talking about, we all have 24 hours in a day. Working full-time and going to college sucks. You have to embrace the suck, right? You have to know that your weekends are not going to be going out to the bars and having a lot of fun and, doing all the stuff that you want to do. It's about sitting down and saying, all right, here we go. Do this report. And you also have to understand that, like, nowadays in college, they do a lot of group projects, which basically means there's like one or two people that actually does all the work. Right. Right. So you just have to embrace it. You have to understand that for the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however long it takes, you're going to have to sacrifice, right? Nothing big happens without sacrifice. So you have to figure out, like, what are those sacrifices you have to make, and how big of sacrifices do you want to make? And so that was sort of like the start of my journey on, figuring out, how to get to that next step. But so go back to that question, like, the thing that really pushed me is that he said, and bring opportunities to us, right? And which ultimately is what I do now, right? I do growth. I do business development. I do growth. I do proposals. But he said, hey, you're out there with the customer every single day, right? They were sort of in this back office where I was the operations manager by this point in time. He said, go find us new opportunities, right? You're out there speaking with the customer every day. Find out where their requirements are. How can we help more? And so I always tell people, going up through the management, ranks and whatnot, people would always ask me, like, what other opportunities are there for me, right? These opportunities don't just grow on their own, right? It's not like you and I, we sit in this back room and we're like, oh, like, how are we going to grow this opportunity? And we're putting our minds together and it's like, oh, the requirements grow from the customer side, right? And the mission side. And if you can help, you're out there, I'm saying the analysts are out there, they're doing the mission every day. And, so they know what those requirements are. And, perfect example, we have people in our own company that they've come to you and me and they've said, Kevin, he came in, he's like, you know what, we're doing this job every single day and it's laborious and it's monotonous. We're just sitting there, we're doing this, but wouldn't it be cool if we could do it better? For example, right now, if you could take and create these geofences and move stuff around and do all this other cool stuff, right, that would be really great. And it makes the intelligence better, right? And that was several years ago, and you looked at them and you're like, you know what, I think that has some merit to it. We started putting money towards it, right, and research and development. And we took it to that next level. We said, well, what about this? We brought in some of the analysts, and they looked at it like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, right? And it grows and it grows and grows, right? So that's in a case where somebody is creating their own demand, right? And I think that's where a lot of these growth opportunities can come from. We have some incredible talent, some incredible brains in the industry, and it just takes getting out of your comfort zone, like you were saying earlier, getting out of your comfort zone and saying, you know what if we did this better?
Right. I mean, that's, you're just talking about innovation, but I don't say just innovation, but, I think that's something that we as a company do really well is that we don't, for one, our people are awesome. We have amazing people. They're the best people, I think, in this industry. So when they come to us with an idea, we take that seriously. We don't just shove it off and say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. These people know what they're talking about. So that's definitely something I know we take pride in doing. But how does somebody do that? Like how does someone? You talked about the example with Kevin, right? He's our director of technical director of ISR innovation. He brings this cool idea. We go and build something, and now it's our technology called Pattern Flows, which does some awesome stuff for multi-int fusion and ISR collection. But typical everyday, scenario, analyst is maybe going into work and they're supporting a mission, supporting a customer. How do they know what to look for? Like, how do they know what an opportunity even is? You talk about customer requirements, but how do they project that? Do they write it down? Do they what are the steps they take?
Yeah,
to build that out.
Yes, they can write it down, or they can just have a conversation. I think it's easier just to have a conversation, right? Writing it down without the conversation. I'm not saying that's bad, but just I know internally we have internal communications for our employees. We have a form you can fill out. You can have Kevin. You can speak directly to Kevin, or you can shoot us a Slack message. As far as an analyst, requirements on the government side, right? They come out in typically formal documentation, right? Mm-hmm. You have the request for information, and you have the request for proposals or request for quote. All different types of different requirements documentation that they have. But that requirement starts with somebody, right? It might eventually get signed off on by a general, and maybe that general has a big hand in developing it out, right? But a lot of this, especially in our industry, like with our niche area, it starts with an analyst, right? Writing that down. I think that's where a lot of our analysts can really get involved, or just analysts across the industry can really get involved with just helping transform the industry on the technology and the analytic methodology. Change is coming. For sure, right? A lot of changes in the mission set and the regions we're looking at and the technology that we have, the United States has, but also the technology that our adversaries have, right? And I think that's going to force industry to make some substantial changes, not just in the technology that we use, but the application of that technology and how that application of the technology changes the analytic process of how we actually collect the data and analyze the data, right? And I think that's, unfortunately, humans in their general nature, we're adverse to change, right? We don't like change. I know I don't like change. That's also why I've been in North Carolina for 20 years, right? Because I'm scared. I'm scared to move anywhere, make new friends. It's hard for me to make friends. That's why I keep people like you.
Oh, boy.
But, I think that anytime an analyst can see, an analyst technician, doesn't matter, anybody, sees a way to improve, have the discussion. Come talk to us. That's how Pattern Flow started, right? It's Kevin saying, hey, is this something that we can do? Is this worth our time? And that affects the,
Right. Well, I think that feeds into kind of your day-to-day role in the company as the Chief Growth Officer. That's a big undertaking. I look at this industry as, you have the technology side, right, which heavily relies on software tools, hardware tools, things like that, and then you have the kind of services and solution side, right. I always hear about the government saying they want more solutions and less services, or more of a combined conglomerate answer or something like that. But then they just go about acquiring the work the same way. I know we can sit there and talk ad nauseum about that, but we don't necessarily need to. I'm curious just about your philosophy. You look out in the industry, why choose certain things to work on and not others? What's the strategic mindset behind a chief growth officer of growing a company in this industry? What are you're not just saying, oh, we could win that, so we'll bid on that, or we'll pursue that and form a team. What's your mindset? How has that evolved maybe since you started? Yeah.
I'm probably going to answer this, and then you're going to get a bunch of emails telling you to fire me.
Okay, great.
No, it's, so one, you have to understand that growth takes time, right? It's easier to grow one or two positions, than it is to grow to a point it actually moves the needle, right? Within the growth and business, when you talk about financials, one person on a contract, 2 people on the contract, it's good, right? We want those, but it doesn't move the needle a lot. So you have to look at those larger opportunities and really where's the funding coming from, right? Mm-hmm. I know GOL, a lot of the people in our industry have suffered from this. Is that we've had a lot of OCO funded billets, and a lot of that's gone away, right? As we started pulling out of Iraq and Afghanistan, that a lot of those monies went away, right? So you have to look at the money source, right? But then also looking at, how do you actually do the capture for those new opportunities? Understand that if you're going to be looking at certain opportunities, right, there's a lot that goes into it. As far as, is it what type of work is it? Is that where you want to brand yourself, right? You're really good with marketing. You've always been really good with marketing, right? That's where you and I sometimes it's a balance between marketing and putting money towards proposals and business development and growing that, right? But it just takes time, and it's a matter of finding that balance between what market space do you want to be in. Do you want to grow into another market space, right? I know one thing that we have been really pushing forward is on, we don't want to be ever just viewed as this recruiting machine, right? Or the staff augmentation focused company. A lot of companies can hire a bunch of recruiters to go out and staff positions, right? We believe as GOL that our job is to provide technical expertise and reach back support and solutions for our customers, right? And in order to do that, you have to do more than just staff augmentation, right? And I really think that's one of the things that differentiates GOL is that we do have that entire enterprise of support, right, for our customers, but it takes time, it takes resources, it takes looking at new opportunities as well, and doing the investment in the research and development, and then growing it out from there and looking for those different opportunities. At the very beginning of, I think it was episode 1, we talked about how I started off doing GIS integration, and you'd set off certain geoprocessing processes on some servers, and you'd go have 7 servers going, and then one would cancel out, and that would just drive me nuts, right? And because I wanted that immediate gratification. Where with business development and growing an organization, there's at least a 2-year window that you have to look at for growth, right? So I've been at GOL for 3 years now, and COVID was tough. Right now, I'm making a case of why you shouldn't get rid of me, right? But you have to look at what are the opportunities that are 2 years out, right? And how do you set yourself in a good position to actually grow, so GOL can grow with that,
right?
And being patient.
Well, you talked about something that I think I had talked about in previous episodes, but we're not the type of company. We're not a staffing firm. It's not what we do. There's a lot of companies that can staff the type of positions that we do. But when you bring us on board, you're going to get acumen, you're going to get competence, you're going to get a backdrop of support for any type of mission that you have. So if we're working on that endeavor, we're doing it, one, because we know what we're doing. Number one, we know what we're doing. You hire us because we know what we're doing. We're not just finding people with clearances and staffing them. There's so many companies that do that. And that's fine. That's a great business model. Obviously, a lot of companies have had a lot of success doing that. But our model is about improving your mission. That's what we're all about. We're about coming in, doing the hard work, finding opportunities for innovation. We have processes built in place for innovation. We're here to make it better, right? We're here to improve the overall outcome. And I don't think you or I would want to wake up every day and just talk to our recruiting team about more positions. That's not really our goal and focus. What does kind of get to me sometimes is it's even hard in this space with the government bureaucracy to innovate. They make innovation hard. Yeah. Because they'll say nonstop at every conference, every trade show you go to in the intelligence industry, how much they want innovation in XYZ space. And then you show them innovation. You show them where you've invested. You show them things that you've done, and there's a disconnect between that operational person that's like, oh, that's awesome, I love that, it's going to save me time, and then there's the acquisition person who actually has to buy it. And that's probably, we could probably spend a whole time just talking about federal acquisition regulations. But there's always a disconnect between that. That is just always drove me crazy. There's a disconnect between the operational people that know what you're doing is innovative and it's awesome and they want it, and then the person that has the pocketbook and that can write the check and get it there for that person at the end of the day.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. And finding that balance from a growth perspective and from even going after because the government has to write the requirements correctly, right? I used to be a real big hater at like when these companies would come in and they would just like come in on this on their proposal and they'd like just submit these rock bottom rates, right? And the government would then reward that bad behavior, right? And they used to just drive me nuts. I'm like, oh, that company's what a terrible company. They did that. You know, they came in. They're really messing up those those employees' lives. But as I've been in the industry longer, it's like they're just playing the game that the government put out,
forcing them to play,
right?
Yeah.
They don't make that company doesn't make the rules. They're just playing the game that the government.
I always
does.
say the contractor will bid as low as the government will allow them.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
That's the way I look at it.
You know how many proposals I've lost because of that? Like we have
probably
that,
a few.
We have that running joke that we're really good at writing blue outstanding losing proposals.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anybody that's watching this and knows our history is like, I get that. I know where he's coming from. But that's okay because it's not great, right? It's okay. Because at least I know that
we've won a few too, Jim.
We
to be clear,
right.
We do have a track history of winning large proposals.
Yeah,
but that's okay. You got to lose some to win some.
You do, and you have to be okay with losing some, right? Because that's just part of that growth process. There is that that threshold. I think they say like you should have like a better than 35% win rate on new work, right? And but you have to take those swings.
So okay, if you're the government. And there are a lot of really good people in the government. I think a lot of times it's easy to just say, ooh, government bad. But there are some great people in government that really care. There's some great contracting officers that are really great at their jobs. There's also some that aren't great at all. But that's neither here nor there. What are some things they can put in those requirements to where they actually get what they're wanting, right? Like
innovation, right? Even with some of these Intel contracts.
Yeah, but innovation.
But in a way to actually evaluate, right?
Okay.
So, and I don't know if this is really the mean or mechanism to talk about like what's the perfectly right strategy to ensure innovation on a contract. But just like what we were talking about, there was a recent solicitation that came out, and we were trying to get innovation as part of the CLIN structure, right? Because the government in the RFP, they were talking about, hey, we want innovation, but they never enabled a mechanism within the contract to have innovation, right? Because the way that they worded it, they went back to the same old solicitation structure where you have, we want 100 analysts that do this XYZ PDQ. We want these qualifications criteria. We want everybody to have a degree in this and that, and so it's very rigid. So it's like that's how if the government wants a low price with no innovation, that's the way to do it. Right. To say we want one Nick Smith, we want him to have these credentials with all of this, with this many years, right? And then people will say that, well, I can get that for this price, and that's what they're going to get, right?
I think the regulations are so complicated. If anybody that has a cool idea or a cool piece of software, a cool technology, and they want to do work with the federal government, the barrier to entry is ridiculous. Like if you think you're just going to go and sell that to the government, like it's not going to happen. There's at least you talked about longevity. It's a marathon, not a sprint, to get that technology or product or even service into the hands of the U.S. government, which is the largest consumer on earth. It's so cumbersome and so ridiculous. Like these regulations, inexpensive for small businesses. I mean, we spend tens of thousands of dollars on every single bid, and sometimes the government will just cancel it or shift it under another vehicle or make it to where we can't even bid on it.
That costs money.
It costs a lot of money. It's
Right.
money.
And
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that a lot of times the government doesn't realize how much money it costs to actually write proposals. I mean,
Right.
to your point, like just earlier this year, we wrote an entire proposal. Actually, it started off under one vehicle, and we helped put together a team. We wrote probably 80% of the solution and proposal leading up to that. And then it was canceled and moved over to a different vehicle, and it actually came out very advantageous to us as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. Like, yes, okay, well, this is great. We wrote our entire proposal. Let's see, did we submit that one? It was canceled. It was canceled right before. It was canceled right before, and then moved over to a completely different vehicle. And this is after we spent, tons of money writing the proposal, sending a team down. And when you think about it, that proposal between the entire process probably cost us $30,000-$40,000.
Right.
That's not that much for one of these big companies, but for a small business, that's a big deal.
Right.
Right. And so that
Davy's
ultimately,
college fund.
he's not going to college now just because of that one. No, but it's those type of things that then it pinches you on your future decisions, right? And then you get near the end of the year, it's like, okay, well, now which ones are we really going to go after because we've expended a lot of these dollars? But then ultimately, you either go after it, but then that drives up the cost.
Yeah.
Right.
You talked about building a team. I want to talk about that because it's super important for us moving forward. Who do you like to work with? When you're building a team, okay, all right, I doubt that. No, when you're building a team, like a contract team, in our space, we have to build teams of companies to fill capability gaps. How do you work with GOL as a team member, right? You have a company, and you start a company, and you have this cool, innovative technology that I spoke about. Well, we're experts at getting that technology integrated into our solutions. How do you work with GOL to get that in there? And then, what are the types of people and companies that you like to work with?
We like working with innovative companies, right? Companies that are going to think outside of the box, that aren't going to be rigid with bureaucracy, right? It's one thing for, especially with big companies, right? They really get wrapped up, right? They have so many, and I'm saying this having 13 years with them, and there are a lot of good stuff and a lot of lessons learned, but man, it's just so difficult to get anything through the process. So we like working with companies that they can be big, right? They can be small. They can be any size. It doesn't matter, right? But companies that can be agile enough to adapt with technology. I think any company that is not agile to adapt with technology, mission requirements, is going to be left in the dust. Those are the companies that are strictly going to be limited to chasing staff augmentation type contracts, right? And that's not really the model that we want to go down, right? So we want to partner with those companies that have that innovative process and that agile approach to new technology, and that aren't just completely closed and saying, hey, this is our technology, this is the solution, and like you may have other stuff, but it's not going to be compatible, right? That's definitely not where GOL is going, right? But like just with pattern flows, right? We want to say, hey, this is ours, and we'll work with anybody.
Right.
Right? Hey, you have a great product over there. Let's integrate over with it, right? We think we can help you, and we think you can help us, right? So that's really the type of companies that we look for, and people and groups and companies that get involved. It's very easy on some of these big solicitations just to say, all right, well, who's going to be on this team? And you just start saying, oh, well, this company over here has a lot of good work, and this company over here has good work, and you just bring it in just, a lot of times because of name recognition, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like, how do you put together that unique niche solution that solves our customers' challenges better or more unique or different than everyone else, right? And I think that's a challenge, because when you talk about like all these solicitations that come out with recruit, hire, train, retain, right? Who are your people, process, technologies, right? And we can kick out a very big proposal within a couple days, just submitting a bland, generic proposal, right? But how do you make it unique? And I think that's really the secret sauce. Going back to your question a little bit ago, like how do you grow, right? It's finding that secret sauce that differentiates your solution, your team, and the integration of your team to solve the customer's challenges, right?
Yeah. I find I I enjoy the process of bidding on things and forming a team and, hearing about capabilities of cool technology and things like that and thinking about, oh man, that would be great. The customer would really love that. That would be something that would really solve the problem. I enjoy that process of just learning. I mean, really, it's just a learning process about all the crazy things that are out there. People are really innovative. They have some amazing ideas, and it's really cool to see what these companies come up with, the ways that they solve problems that we're looking at, the same problems, the same requirements a lot of times. So I really enjoy that process. I'd say that people could, if they're interested in working with GeoOwl on any of these contract programs, feel free to send me or Jim an email, jim@geowl.com, nick@geowl.com. You can find more info about us on our website at geowl.com. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on all those channels. So if you're interested, definitely check out our website and stay tuned to the GeoOwl podcast for more information.
Visit geowl.com and learn how GeoOwl implements next-generation intelligence advancement technologies to aid the Department of Defense with precision and expertise analysis. GeoOwl.
The new era of intelligence.